Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I'm Andrew Hanson alongside Sugar Shane Caldwell. This is the Week 8 wide receiver and tight end podcast for the main slate, and it's our third of the night, and we're excited to get into it here on this Halloween night. Shane, do you have any energy left from the candy you've eaten for some wide receivers and tight ends here?
Always do. We love these wide receivers and tight ends. I probably like the wide receivers better than tight ends, to be honest. But we would love the picks here. We're trying to avoid the crazy weather games and figure out the best plays here. So I'm ready to get into these wide receivers.
Absolutely. So, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, betus.com.pa. Use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, and get that 125% match on your first deposit. All right, Shane, we're going to target the games with high totals on betus.com.pa. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you would like to start with Mr. Davante Adams, who is in one of those totals with 51 as the magic number, over 50. Is he your guy this week?
Yeah, he's certainly looking good. I mean, everyone knows in week 1 when he faced Minnesota, he only had 17 targets. That's it. So he caught 14 of those, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's looking pretty good. Minnesota's secondary might have gotten worse since then. They've had some guys go on IR. Cameron Dantzler, the rookie cornerback, just came back from the COVID reserve list. He actually didn't have COVID. He just came back because he was exposed to someone with COVID. So Cameron Dantzler will be primarily on Davante Adams as a rookie here, and this is a huge mismatch. Most people on Davante Adams is a mismatch, but definitely Dantzler here. So I look for Davante Adams to absolutely shred him here. There's no one that can cover them. They might try to put 2 guys on him, but he's pretty much matchup proof. And I think that he's due for a huge game here. It's just a matter if you can fit him in at his expensive price tag. There's a slight concern with the weather, but I think that because he can hit a lot of those quick short routes and shorter passes, he's not really dependent on hitting all deep shots. And especially on a PPR site like DraftKings, because he can get this type of volume and this type of catches of, having that upside of 14 catches. I think that's where he's pretty safe to fire up there on DraftKings. He's not dependent on just hitting some deep shots in this kind of, windy, cold weather game here. So definitely Davante Adams, if you can fit him into your builds, is a great guy to target this week in a great matchup, in a great situation again.
Yeah, the key thing you said there is if you can fit him in, because it's a great matchup. He's shown that. He was awesome last week. But a lot of my builds so far, I've been a little bit more balanced mid-tier with the wide receivers, so I'm not going to get to him quite as much. The first guy I like is a lot cheaper on DraftKings. He's 2,200 cheaper. It's Tyler Boyd, going up against Tennessee. They're number 26 against the pass. They're not good in the slot, and he's just a great option at PPR. Great connection with Burrow. And so I'm going to have that stack a bunch on DraftKings.
Awesome. Here's another guy we can go right back to. And I don't typically try to chase totals. We don't just try to chase last week's game. But Tyler Lockett is in a great spot again here. They're going to be home favorites against San Francisco. San Francisco is pretty weak in the slot corner position there, where Tyler Lockett primarily lines up. He's going up against Jamar Taylor, who's the lowest rated San Francisco corner by far. And Tyler Lockett is a huge mismatch. You've seen how he played last week. They really can't cover him. And again, I don't think Seattle's going to run the ball as much in this game. So I think that they will be Seattle's running backs are pretty banged up. I think they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and Tyler Lockett will be a primary target for Russell Wilson here. And I like his mid-tier pricing. He's pretty expensive, but 7,200 FanDuel, 7,100 DK. But I think he's worth it. He's going to get a ton of volume. And if you just seen some of the plays he made, it wasn't just like a fluke thing. It wasn't like he was, making those plays on blown coverage. You've seen some of the plays he made, and how his connection with Russell Wilson is just, unsurpassed here in terms of their chemistry, timing, understanding of route running, and their connection and the accuracy on deep balls and the underneath and the route running. Everything about Tyler Lockett. This is a huge mismatch, and I don't think they can cover him. So I think you can go right back to Tyler Lockett, and it's a pretty high over under. I think at least for Seattle, it's a pretty good implied total. So right back to Tyler Lockett again this week.
Yep, 53.5 is the total on betus.com.pa for that one. My next target is a little bit lower total. It's 46 on BetUS, and that's the Rams against Miami. But the Rams are the road favorites by 3.5. And Cooper Kupp has one of the best matchups on paper of any wide receiver on this slate. Miami's not been good against the slot. So Cooper Kupp, especially on DraftKings, PPR, he's going to be in a bunch of my lineups.
Yeah, he's due for a big game, so hopefully he can get it in Miami there. So it'll be the opposite down there in Miami. It'll be really hot and humid there. So I think they can handle it though. They're from LA, right? So
Exactly.
I think yeah. Here's another game where the weather's going to be nice because it's inside at Ford Field at home. I'm going to my guy, Mr. 50-50 ball. So that's my nickname for him there. And I kind of nicknamed him that over the offseason. He just happens to be like the number one contested catch guy, like statistically, so he catches everything when it's a 50-50 ball here. So I'm going to my guy, Kenny Golladay here. Indianapolis has been solid against the pass. They've been a tough matchup. That's why I kind of like it. You can get him at lower ownership. You can stack him with Stafford here, or you can just do a one-off with Kenny Golladay. And he plays good at Ford Field. Stafford's going to be hitting him with some of those play action deep shots, and I expect him to connect on some of those deep shots. He's one of the best guys at just going up and attacking the ball, and Stafford throws a great deep pass to him. He's not afraid to go up there. And Xavier Rhodes has played good this year, but I think he hasn't faced any wide receivers that are as imposing as Kenny Golladay. Again, Indianapolis, I think, has had a pretty easy matchups and a pretty easy schedule. So they haven't faced anyone like this Lions passing attack and Kenny Golladay. So Xavier Rhodes, I think, will be exposed by Kenny Golladay this week. And he's a little bit expensive. So I think the ownership's going to be low because the perceived shutdown matchup. Mr. 50-50 ball is going to come on the right out on the right side of the 50-50 on this one once again. So I look for a big game, potentially finally get 2 touchdowns because he pretty much gets a touchdown just about every game. I think this is a 2 touchdown game and somewhere around 100 receiving yards for Golladay in a tough matchup.
All right, we shall see. That's the Detroit Sports Man talking right there. You can find Shane on Twitter at DET Sports Shane. While you're there, look me up at Language Olympic. And then you can check out our fearless leader, the coach, at JOESARVADI. He's grinding 4 or 5 hours a day getting ready for the NBA season. So check us all out there. And then the group is available at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. Love interacting with you. Shane, next target for me, Keenan Allen. This is a guy who's been so good to me over the years because I play primarily on DraftKings, and he is just phenomenal there. So reliable, monster games, getting those bonuses, and great chemistry already with Herbert. So, not a shootout game that we're looking for here with Denver, but just give Allen 8 or 9 catches, 90 to 100 yards, maybe a touchdown, and I'll be happy at that $6,200 price tag.
Yeah, and who would have thought when Philip Rivers left town that Keenan Allen might be even better now?
Right.
Because Herbert kind of came out of nowhere. But you got to love it, man. You just love the way that throws the ball. And Keenan Allen is a technician out there. Pretty tough matchup against Bryce Callahan, but I think he could really torch Bryce Callahan. That's another corner who hasn't really went up against a player with the caliber of Keenan Allen. So he's rated high, but he hasn't really went up against that many good slot corner or wide receivers. So he's about to face a tough matchup this week in Keenan Allen.
Yes, he is. Anyone else you like in that mid tier?
Yeah, this is a sneaky like GPP play here. It's Hollywood Marquise Brown here for the Ravens. I know that's like one of those things they've been taking deep shots with them. They have been very inefficient, where last year Lamar Jackson in the passing game was for efficient. But this is the type of game against Pittsburgh where Pittsburgh has a great pass, but they're not that great in coverage. Marquise Brown is super fast, really skilled type wide receiver. They're going to take some deep shots. You're not going to be able to run the ball as easy against Pittsburgh. You're not going to be able to just dunk and grind it out because they just have a fast, physical defense. But you can take deep shots on them. I've seen teams do it, and I think they're set up for some really good deep shots. And I like the fact that Lamar Jackson is mobile enough, obviously, to get away from that ferocious pass rush for Pittsburgh and allows more time to hit those deep shots and expose that vulnerable secondary. If Marquise Brown is getting up against Joe Hayden, I think that's a mismatch at this point in Joe Hayden's career. I think he has speed to keep up with Marquise Brown. So I'm looking for them to connect on some deep passes this week and have some explosive plays as points be pretty tough in this matchup. And that's why people will steer away. So that's why he's more of a GPP. It's a big play ownership in a tough matchup. And I think I think that's the way Baltimore can score, is hit some big plays in the passing game this week.
Excellent. All right. Well, speaking of big plays in the passing game, and a lot of them, hopefully a higher volume situation, is that San Francisco-Seattle matchup. I like both wide receivers for San Francisco here with Deebo Samuel out. So I'm going to have a bunch of exposure to Mr. Ayuk and Mr. Bourne. Nice price tags on both sites, very affordable. You can certainly stack them with Jimmy G. And again, Seattle number 32 against the pass, and the total here is still at 53.5, so highest total on the board on betus.com.pa. So I like both of those guys. I'm going to throw in one more value play here off of our coach's clipboard, and that is Adam Humphries. On DraftKings, he's only 3,800. I like playing him over there because he's another PPR guy. Tannehill likes going to him. And, this is looking like a high-scoring game. Cincinnati, number 24 against the pass. A.J. Brown should have a little bit of a tougher matchup. So I think they'll rely on Humphries in a PPR format here. You support those last couple of plays?
Yeah, I think Adam Humphries, and he's not a super high upside type guy, but Tennessee's secondary is pretty weak. You can hit them over the middle all day. So if they do try to stack the box, since, not Tennessee, I mean Cincinnati secondary. If they try to stack the box against Derrick Henry, I mean, there's going to be a lot of work in the passing game, and that's the thing about Tennessee. They're not one-dimensional. They can hit you in the passing or the running game, so they'll adjust based on what the defense is doing. And Adam Humphries could be a big part of that. So definitely, I think that's a good sneaky play.
Excellent. So we'll give the rest of the coach's clipboard in terms of wide receivers to our members. And before we get into the tight end situation and matchups, let's take a minute to hear from our partners at betus.com.pa.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at betus.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sports book with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sports book that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
Welcome back, and thank you again to betus.com.pa for that wonderful offer for our listeners here. Use the promo code CoachTalk. You don't have to be a member with us, just a listener. So use that promo code CoachTalk, get a 125% match on your first deposit. All right, Shane, it's time for tight ends, and we don't like them as much as the wide receivers here, not quite as many options. But if you're looking at the expensive options, who's your first target?
Yeah, I mean, since tight ends can be a rough position, instead of going dumpster diving here, you can pay up. And Travis Kelce's in a great spot. Last week they didn't really have to pass that much because they went out to Denver in that snow game, and their defense played great, and they just had this huge lead the entire game. So Kelce didn't get much volume, so it looks disappointing, but they didn't really have to do anything. Now you got the New York Jets, really bad against tight ends. Really, they don't have any linebackers or safeties that can match up against Kelce. So I think I could definitely see the game plan of feeding Kelce lots of targets. He's great in the red zone. He's great between the 20s. And he's in a great spot here against the Jets. And they have the highest implied total Kansas City has the highest implied total of anyone on this slate. It's like over 34 points. So they're going to score a lot of points. Even if it's in the first half or 3/4, Kelsey could smash his price tag. He's expensive, so I think you're paying up for a little bit lower ownership here. Although he is cheaper than George Kittle on DraftKings, which I think because they're expecting high volume from Kittle. But if you want to pivot off Kittle, you can go over to Kelsey on DraftKings at 6,600. I think that's a great value. So I look for him to have a huge game against the Jets here at home. I think he definitely plays good at home as well. Kelsey does.
Yes, he does. Well, I'll save you $1,000 with my favorite tight end on DraftKings, especially in terms of the expensive ones. That's Darren Waller. He's 5,600 going up against Cleveland in that high total. Right now, we are looking at 49. Okay, it has gone down from 51.5 on betus.com.pa because of the weather. And we're looking at 27 to 30 mile an hour winds. Could get some rain, maybe even some snow, which I think just feeds even more into hitting Waller. I think he's going to be the best pass target for Derek Carr in these conditions and in that matchup. So I'm looking for a big game from Waller. If you don't go with one of those two guys, Shane, who's your next target?
Well, the other expensive guy that's projecting really well is George Kittle. He's going out to Seattle. Again, they're going to have to pass. Their running game isn't looking as great with the running backs being banged up. They're going to have to pass a lot. They're likely going to be down in a pretty high-scoring game here in great weather. George Kittle, when Deebo Samuel out, is pretty much a target monster. And when you get the ball in this guy's hands, he's a physical force. So it's a pretty tough matchup against Seattle, but they haven't really faced any elite-level tight ends. So, again, their rating against tight ends might be a little bit inflated by, playing some really bad tight end offenses, so George Kittle is really good in a good spot here. And I love stacking this game and including some George Kittle in there as well on the San Francisco side. And then, you got to love him with Jimmy Garoppolo as well, partnering him up because Garoppolo is so cheap. So definitely you can fire up some George Kittle this week. He's looking like he's in a great spot.
Okay. Well, if you start to look at the mid-tier, I'm going to give you a GPP option, and that's Jared Cook for New Orleans with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders out in a big windy game at Chicago. I think Drew Brees could look to Cook here. Solid matchup. We saw what the Tampa Bay tight ends did against Chicago in prime time. We saw what Everett and Munt did on Monday night. So that's one way you can beat this tough Chicago defense is with tight ends. So Cook would be a GPP play for me.
Okay.
Who else do you like?
So I'll go over back to the GPP stacks, the contrarian stacks with Detroit again. You can throw in TJ Hockenson. Again, Indianapolis rated really high against the tight end, but have they really faced that good at tight ends? Not really. They faced some pretty bad competition. They haven't faced a guy like Hockenson, who has a great connection with Stafford right now. Again, the thing with Hockenson, he doesn't get much volume, but he catches pretty much everything, and he gets a touchdown. He's got a touchdown with the last 3 games. So he's a big target, great route runner, and I expect him to get quite a bit of pass volume here and catches. And I think that you'll get him a little bit lower ownership because of the tough matchup again this week, similar to the Kenny Galladay situation here. So definitely like Hockenson this week, and especially for GPPs.
Okay. I've got 2 more to share with you, Shane, and they're in the same game. It's that Cincinnati-Tennessee game. So I'm looking at Jonnu Smith and Drew Sample. Jonnu Smith draws the number 2 most friendly matchup for tight ends. Yeah, that's Cincinnati. They've given up 6 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Not for the season, the last 3 weeks. It's insane. And Jonnu hasn't had a ton of volume here the last couple weeks. He's been a little bit banged up, but I think he's going to spike back up here in this one. And then on the other side, Drew Sample gets Tennessee. They're only they're the number 8 most friendly matchup for tight ends. He had a nice bounce back game last week, again with 20-mile-an-hour winds. I think we'll see short passes from these quarterbacks. So Drew Sample should benefit from that, and he could work out. And I do want to mention that, again, I like the 2 tight end play on DraftKings. Not every week, not every lineup, but sometimes, depending on how many lineups you're playing. And so if you want to pay up to one of the guys we've talked about, I think you can pair him with one of these cheap guys and go 2 tight ends in some of your lineups. Shane, do you have one more for us before we wrap up?
Yep, here's another GPP play that's fairly affordable. It's hard to find some affordable tight ends you can trust here, especially on FanDuel. I like Mike Gesicki. I think Gesicki he's running a ton of routes, and for some reason Ryan Fitzpatrick hasn't really targeted him that much lately. Okay, so Fitzpatrick's pretty good at pushing the ball down to the outside and the perimeter to not take those guys and Preston Williams. But now that you have Tua, and I think Tua will use his great accuracy and timing as a passer to hit those big guys over the middle, and Gesicki's a perfect target for that. So if Gesicki's running a similar amount of routes, I think he's going to get more targets and have better accurate passes thrown to him with Tua in the lineup. I think he's due for a big game. He's shown that big ceiling, and then he's been a boomer bust type play, and I have played him in some of those bust games where he's disappointed. But I think with Tua in the lineup, I'm going to project it before I see them together based on the skill set and the film that I've seen. I think the Tua to Gesicki connection could be something special here, and I just like Gesicki's role in this with Tua at quarterback now. So, and I get a good matchup against the Rams because I don't really want to target their outside cornerbacks like Jalen Ramsey. So I would rather go to the tight ends and the big guys over the middle here, as opposed to trying to go against their tough pass coverage. Plus, you're not going to have a lot of time as well because of the tough pass rush here. So you can check it down to these big guys over the middle. So I'm looking for Mike Gesicki to have a breakout game here.
Excellent. Wonderful breakdown as always, Shane. And if you all like what you're hearing, hopefully you do. We'd like to invite you to join us as members. We've had a great NFL season, and we'd like to help you win with us. So if you'd like to do that, just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com, grab a weekly or monthly membership, or the winter special, which takes you through the Super Bowl and thereafter. And then you'll pick up on the NBA season when it starts. You get our PGA lineups all winter. And then, of course, we'll be ready to crush it when baseball starts off again next spring. And then what you get with membership, what is it? Well, we give out full lineups on FanDuel for every slate in the NFL. So the main slate will have our cash lineup and then 2 GPP lineups. And then on DraftKings, we give out the coach's clipboard with core plays and pivots. And we also give out the Yahoo lineup. I didn't mention that in the other shows. That's been crushing it as well. So jump in with us as members. If you haven't seen the other shows tonight, check out the quarterback show. We also did a running backs podcast, and then we're going to record a primetime show as well for the Sunday night and the Monday night games. Shane, any final thoughts here for our listeners?
No, I think we're excited about our wide receiver tight end picks, and it's going to be fun watching these games in this weather, honestly. I'm going to be nice and cozy here with the heat on, watching these games, watching these players in these crazy weather environments. So it's that time of year, time for some old school football.
Absolutely. And, I actually forgot one more thing I wanted to mention. For our members, we just recorded a members-only podcast that is for bankroll management and contest selection. And what we're trying to do is help you be profitable in a long-term context. And so, yes, we talk about GPP picks, but one of our big things here is slowly building the bankroll with the right contests selected. So jump in with us as a member, and we'll share that video with you. It's really important to us here that we help you win long term. So that'll do it for today. On behalf of Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time as we look to crush it in DFS.